Welcome to the Big Change the Film interview series. My name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with individuals who've also lost significant amounts of weight, hear their stories, and try and pass along some of that inspiration to others. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is 9,791 pounds. This week's guest is Jennifer Peli from England. Jennifer told me that she struggled with her weight since the time she was 18. She actually struggled with IBS from the age of 10 years old all the way until she was 67. Jennifer decided to change her diet in an effort to try and save her husband's life after he had a heart attack, and life changed drastically from them. She, in the process, lost 67 pounds. He has become healthier than ever, and she's also taken up running at the age of 69. We have a fantastic conversation, and thanks so much for watching. I'm here with Jennifer Peli. We got connected through Tim Kaufman, and she lives on the other side of the pond, and had some time to chat with me. And so first off, Jennifer, thanks for the time. And maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself and where you live.
Well, as you say, I live in Brighton, in East Sussex, because there's more than one Brighton. It's by the coast, and I've been living here for about 20 years. And before that, I lived in Italy, and then before that, I lived in France, and before that, I was brought up in London, in England. So I'd say I'm European, really, although perhaps being European in the UK at the moment is a bit of a dirty word, but I'm proud of it. And yes, I'm stay-at-home. I was a stay-at-home mum. I worked a bit part-time, and I've had brought up a family, like I suppose many women of my generation. My husband travelled a lot and had a very worked long hours, and because I had no family, because we had no family nearby, particularly France, one of the parents had to stay at home, so that was me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, and you've lost a bit of weight. So how many pounds have you lost so far?
Well, I've now lost 67 pounds. Yes, because I've lost another pound in the past week or so.
Wow.
So it's still a little bit coming off, yeah.
Yeah, congrats. So, you wrote to me a little bit, and maybe we could just, take it back to the very beginning. You sound like you were active as a child, but you started putting on weight pretty early on. Is that right?
Yeah. I've always been active, but I put on weight when I was about 13. I started to put on weight, and now how to understand? My parents had split up, so I was with my mother, and she had always been very thin. And my brother, who took after her, was always very thin. And my mother said, "Oh, it'll go. Don't worry about it," and so on and so forth, the usual. And I was very active. I was quite sporty at school. I used to cycle to school, about a couple of miles there and back. But I wasn't obese. I suppose that I weighed about 150 pounds. And I mean, I've been 5'6" since I was 12 because I grew quite quickly. But then when I stopped being quite so active, then I started putting it on, and I think I did my first diet when I was 18. And from then on, the only time that I was really skinny was after having my children. I had my first child, my daughter, and I lost weight. But I had a nice son, and I lost weight. And I was skinny for about 8 years. I think it was I don't know why. It seemed to affect my metabolism, or it's the fact that my children didn't sleep for 6 years. But whatever the reason. And then when I was 33, I started putting it back on again. And I went to the doctor, and I said, "Look, I'm putting on weight again. I don't want to go get put on weight." And he looked at me and said, "Yes, but you're not fat." He said, "Come back to me when you're fat, and we'll see what we can do." So, yeah.
Wow.
And so from then on, it was trying, I did the carb route, and I'd been macrobiotic, and then I used to get fed up and I just can't take this anymore. And then things would go wrong in my life, and I'd be unhappy, and, the usual, what everybody else seems to get through, and which sort of I've found out is like the pleasure trap, is what has been called the pleasure trap by Dr. Doug Lyle. And I thought, well, this is it. You get to a certain stage, you get slim, you think you can, right, I've lost the weight, then I can have a little bit of cake, or I can have a biscuit, or I can have a piece of chocolate. But you can't, because it's never just a little bit, And then it all starts the whole cycle again. So yeah, I went on like that, and it's very, very depressing. It's very demoralising. My health also wasn't good. I was always. I had these colics, which I started when I was 10, which we now call IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And it used to sometimes really cut me off at the knees. I just couldn't stand up straight. The pain, it was awful. And then I get over it, and I went to a doctor and said, "Oh, you're allergic to tomatoes, you're allergic to this, or it's in your mind, it's because, when you get upset," all the usual things, but never really addressing the problem of diet, you know.
And when you look back
So,
now, what were some of the major contributors for you when it came to food lifestyle that really contributed to your weight gain now that you look back?
yeah, well, I think at the beginning, it was probably the fact that my parents broke up. My mother and father, they had their own business, and we lived above the business. And we got kicked out, and then we ended up in the country with my paternal grandmother. And my mother had to go to work. My father did give a little bit of support, but she went back to work and worked outside the home. So, of course, there was always the biscuits and chocolates available. So I think that was it, the fact. And I think, well, people say it's comfort eating, but now we know exactly what kicks that off, because it's the dopamine in the brain, and it does make you feel better and happier. Because for me, it was, you, you have to understand that time. Ooh, bless you.
Thank you.
In that time, it was my age when we went to live in Norfolk, and it had really been joined to the rest of the country for a very short time. In fact, for instance, at the pub near where we lived, there was a old chap, and he came into the village. And he always had the same seat. One day, he came in, and there was somebody from the next village sitting. He said, "All these old foreigners coming in here and sitting in my seat." So they considered somebody from the next village a foreigner. So you can imagine someone from London. And because I have no accent to speak, I have no accent. So when I went to school, even the English teacher said I spoke with a plum in my mouth. So I had to learn how to speak the Norfolk accent. It was all very difficult. It was hard, and it was a different curriculum. And I think all that all helped. But I now realise from Dr. McDougall that basically it's the food. I wish I'd have known it 50 years ago. I really do, because it is the food.
And did that
And
did those foods and those patterns change for you for whenever you were a teenager versus after, those 8 years you said that you were skinny after having your kids?
yeah,
Was it
when
different?
I look back, and well, my children born in France, and then when my son was 9 months, my husband was recalled to Italy. We went to Milan, and there was no fast food around and no takeaways, and so it was all cooked at home. And I had read about having whole foods. I used to, because you couldn't find wholemeal bread, I used to make it. I used to found a shop that sold wholemeal flour and put the pram and go off and get the wholemeal flour. And I used to make our own bread. And even now, my son talks about the pizzas that I made with bread from wholemeal flour. He wasn't very appreciative, but never mind. And I think that it was basically, perhaps that helped. So it was quite heavy carbohydrate meal. And because my children, as they got, were always fighting. I don't know, other people have siblings that fight. And I couldn't even eat with them. So I probably missed a lot of meals because I just couldn't sit at the table with them, because they used to fight and bicker. And, they're in their 40s now, and they still fight. So, it's a character clash. And it might have been that. I don't know. Either that, or once I had my children, whereas some women put on weight after they've had their kids, some women do lose weight. And my daughter-in-law got very thin after her first baby. So I don't know whether it was also that. But who knows, but I started to put on weight again when I was about 33. And then it all started again, and trying to find out way to lose the weight, and not being particularly successful because things would happen, and as things do in life, and then what would I do? I'd go to the biscuits or the cake, and of course it's never one biscuit, it's a whole packet, secret eating and all everything what I've heard people do. And this is why I put my story out, because I know what it's like. And I've heard people say that if they had sort of biscuits or chocolate in the house, it would call to them. And it does. You can hear it, There's that voice. Oh, I'm in the cupboard. Come and eat me, please. And so, it does call to you. Sometimes I used to say to my husband, because he's always been slim, and I said, I think I'm just psychological, there's something wrong with me. I need to go see a psychiatrist. And, oh no, don't be stupid, Of course you don't. So, and he loved me anyway, he loved me when I was fatter. He loves me now I'm thin, he thinks I'm beautiful, even though I'm now knocking on 70 and I'm all wrinkly, I said, well, probably you don't see so well, but the main thing is that he loves me anyway. But it's sort of it's and I see so many people's stories like mine, and I'd like people who can find this out a lot younger than I found it out, because I'd say to my husband, if only I'd have known when I was younger, and he said, well, the main thing is now, sort of forget it, don't sweat the small stuff, you found out, you're well, you're fit, and so what's important is the now, which is true, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, I know you mentioned you had the colics or the IBS. Was there anything else physically that you struggled with?
Well, yes, there was my back. When I was 27, and my son was about 18 months, my daughter was coming up to 3. My mother was over in Italy, and we drove from Milan, and we went to a place in Mont Blanc in a hotel, and my back had been playing up. And then it was the day we were due to go, and I stood up and I found myself on the floor. Literally, I didn't know how I got there, but it was my back. And my husband doesn't drive. And he says, we've got to go back. We've got to go back. He said, go and have a rest, take some aspirin, which I did. And I got in the car, and then eventually we got stuck on the motorway, and somebody drew up who was going to Milan, and the husband drove our car, and the wife drove their car. And I had to do the journey flat on my back, and I couldn't walk for a week. And I had, they gave me steroids and everything, got me on my feet. But it was arthritis. I had arthritic spikes in my spine. The doctor, I've only give you 10 years for your back. You'll be in a wheelchair and so on. And I thought, well, I don't think so. So I started doing yoga then. And I started trying to find a way to eat healthy. What is it? The Adele, somebody or other, an American who does all the supplements and so on and so forth, is it Adele Davis? I don't know. Can't remember now. And so I really tried to look after myself and health-wise. Well, I'll give this bit of wisdom out to the other women like me that I was given at that time. And there was a lady who was she had her son at school with me. I'd had my children young. I was in my early 20s. So she had her son when she was late 30s. And she invited me for coffee, went there, and her husband came in from work, and he said, oh, look. And she got up. She said, no, you darling, you stay there and sit down. I'll start dinner. And I went, this is an Italian, And she said to me, look, she said, if you don't look after yourself, who is going to look after your family? Who's going to look after you? And what's going to happen to your family? She says, the first person you have to look after is yourself. And I thought that this was so true. So then I did start to look after my back, and if I had a bad back, I rested. But the arthritis was a problem. Yes, I didn't have anything anything else. Those were what I had: the arthritis, the IBS, and the migraines.
Okay. And then, you know, you, and one of the things you wrote to me was, you know, like you discovered this much later in life. It kind of almost sounded like you lived in a place where you thought that was just going to be your life from here on out. Is that kind of right?
Yes, and I was at a stage, and I'd said to my husband, I can't breathe because I had such a big stomach, and I said I've really got to go on another diet, So and then that September was 2014 was a horrible month to me. I had this second cousin who I really loved. We were very close. She was my biggest supporter. She was absolutely great. And she died on the 5th of September. And then my daughter emigrated on the 10th to Australia with her husband and little girl. And then the funeral was, I think, on the 14th and the 17th. We've been having trouble with the dishwasher that we didn't. And my husband, I had to call the plumber next door because my husband couldn't do it. And he was in bed and he called me and he said, I got this terrible pain around my chest. Well, I used to be a nurse, I said, right, 999, it's 999 here, straight away. And it's 5 o'clock in the evening and I called them. He said, oh, don't call them, don't call. Well, I called them. And they came in, out in the ambulance, they did tests. He says he's having a heart attack. They immediately phoned the hospital, and at 7:30 in the evening, he was already down on the ward after having a stent put in. So he'd had his heart attack. And when the doctors told me afterwards that they'd put a stent in one coronary artery, but the other was still 85% blocked, and it was too dangerous to put a stent in. Right. So he came home 2 days later, and the medication, I think, was killing him. And I don't know how many letters I wrote to the cardiologist. And I said, look, my husband isn't a typical person to have a heart attack. He's slim, if anything, he's underweight. He walks 4 or 5 miles a day at least with a dog. He's always active. He eats a Mediterranean diet. For God's sake, he's Italian, He's brought up in Italy. And he doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink alcohol. What can I do to help him? Because this medication is killing him. Because what the most terrifying thing was that his memory was getting affected, apart from the pain he was in. And he was starting to lose his memory. We thought he was going into dementia. And he used to look at me devastated and say, I can't remember what happened this morning. What happens? I can't remember. And then when we were in England, he'd think he was in Italy. And when he was in Italy, he'd think he was in England. And even my son, we were so worried. And then I didn't get any joy. That was supposed to be our life. And then on Amazon, this book popped up. And it was Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Paul Dwellesley, my hero, literally. And I thought, I'm a great one for research and for looking for answers for books. I don't sit back and let people dish out the information. And I bought it. I think I read it through the night. Next morning, right, I said, look, if this means changing our diet completely. And I said, we can try it for 30 days. He says, do you notice a difference even within 10 days? And he said, okay. And I said, but you've got to give up the olive oil. It's Italian. He said, oh, well, okay, I'll do it. We were pretty desperate by then. So we started really hardcore Dr. Esselstyn diet. 10 days later, I thought I thought I was going to get fat, even fatter than I was already, because I was around about 85 kilos, because all the starch, I'd been brought up to think that, the starch makes you fat. And I said, but I wanted to get my husband better. And so we tried it. 10 days later, he had one of these heart tests where they put in radioactive stuff into your bloodstream, and it goes around your heart, and they can tell the flow of the blood, if the heart's working well, and so on and so forth. Well, about a month later, the results came back, and the letter from the cardiologist and saying, right, he says there's no blockages, heart flow's good, your husband's heart is working well. And I thought, well, what's happened to that artery that was 85% blocked, gone. And also, I noticed difference because one of the things I said to cardiologists, which they hadn't taken aboard, was my husband always had very, very cold hands. Well, he still has got cold hands, but they used to go absolutely blue and then white. And that has practically gone. He still gets cold hands because he's very skinny, and the weather isn't great here at the moment. It's been pretty chilly lately, so but that's gone, and so we stayed on it. That was after 10 days, So and then as soon as I got the letter from the cardiologist, I started reducing this medication. I didn't wait for the cardiologist. I used to be a nurse. I knew how to do it. So we started on the statins immediately, gradually reducing. Now, I'd started in September. In the April, he was still having severe memory loss, but now it's 18 months later. His memory he had a phenomenal memory. He had photographic memory. So, but now it's more like mine. I've never had a brilliant memory. And he complains, and I said, "Well, look," I said, "you're normal now. You're like me." But he said, "But I've never been normal." But the thing is that more or less, he can remember what happens to him, and his memory is a bit better than mine even. He remembers names that I don't, and so on and so forth. So that has come back, which is the most important thing, really. He still he still has his bad back and pain in his hands, but then he's 86 and he'd like to think that he can do what he did when he's 40, but unfortunately one can't. He's one of these Italians, everything's got to be done yesterday. There's not a mañana or domani for my husband. It's everything, something he's doing, it has to be done immediately. I'm more laid back, sort of, I'm a bit more lazy, but and I looked at some photos and I'd realised that by the November, I'd already lost a significant amount of weight. Unfortunately, when my daughter, she was quite small. I think she was in a UK size 12. I think that's an American size 10. And she'd left me clothes and jeans. So I had something to put on, because my foot and my trousers, they fall off. Because that's how I really, it just went. And by the December, I think that I was probably about 135 pounds, and gradually it's gone. Now I'm 121. So, and I've literally, my husband looked at me and he looked at the photos that I've been looking at and he said, "You're half the size." And I said, "Well, literally, because in the English sizes, I was a 20 and now I'm a 10. So literally, I am half the size, which is great because when you get older, if you can lose the weight, you're much more mobile. You can do much more. You don't get so tired. And I expect it happens when you're younger too, but I think especially as one gets older. So, so that's the story, really. It was, but after, of course, Esselstyn, then my husband was better, so then we found Dr. McDougall. So we went more on the McDougall side, which is a little bit more, it's not quite so strict. You can, he would allow a little bit of sugar, which I don't have, but my husband might have, a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt because his blood pressure is normal. And, so there you go. I think that and the Dr. Mary McDougall's recipes are lovely. And, I've adapted a lot of the Italian recipes as well. I think one thing has been quite easy because my husband was brought up in fascist Italy and through the war, and he was sent off to stay with his grandmother in the country who had a big allotment, I don't know, it wouldn't be allotment in America, but it's where you grow all your fruit and vegetables, big garden. And so they didn't eat meat or dairy because it wasn't there, that was, I suppose it was taken for the soldiers. So he's brought up really on a vegan diet. So he really adapted very easily. And I loved all the carbohydrates, don't you? Potatoes. Oh, yes, please, give me potatoes. You know, we do pasta. And on a Saturday, I make a pizza, and because I have to keep off bread, but I make the dough and I make a pizza. That's our Saturday treat, you know. So, yeah, and there you go. It's just wonderful. And this is why I want to put my story out, because I'm saying, look, you know, it doesn't matter how old you are. My husband was 84. I was 67. Do it, you know, and follow, because people say, oh, well, I do it 90%, I do it 80%. No, you have to do it 100%. Because if you do it 80% or 90%, you're going to fall off. You're going to fall off the wagon, so to speak. You know, you'll say, oh, go to a party. Oh, we'll just have one piece of birthday cake. No, when you get home, it's or everything. You'll put a coat over your pajamas and go out to get the cake or the chocolate from the 24-hour supermarket. So I say, no, be compliant. You'll enjoy the food, and the benefits just amazing, you know.
Yeah, well, when you're facing, I mean, you know, for your husband and for your, you know, I mean, it's a life or death issue. You know, you don't treat life or
No,
death issues like, oh, I'll just go 80% or 85%
yeah,
or
no.
70%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, this was it. I mean, I had no choice. This was to get my husband better, and we were willing to try it. When it worked, we just carried on. The fact is that my husband does tend to be an all or nothing person. Having decided that he was going to do it, he
Yeah.
did it. You know, I had full cooperation from my husband, which some people don't get, you know, but this is something I don't get, that people who've got diabetes or heart disease, and there's this chance that you have of getting better and getting off all that awful medication, and that they don't take it. This is something that I don't get, you know, because for me, but also personally, I was in accident, because suddenly I found not only did I lose the weight, but my husband said, you know, why don't you try some tomatoes? And I do like tomatoes. I thought, well, let's try. I said, we'll do it when we're not doing anything for a couple of days, just in case I have a colic. I didn't have a colic. Nothing happened. Everything was all quiet. If people who have IBS know, when it's all quiet down there, you know, and you don't know you've got some intestines or stomach, you know that everything's fine, you know. And then I started just eating lots of tomatoes, and and then suddenly I looked at my migraine medication, and I realised I hadn't used it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I regularly had migraines for over 2 or 3 weeks, and it just because it just sort of happens, and this is and because I was so focused on getting my husband better, you know. And then suddenly, you know, my clothes started to fall off. My husband looked at me, he said, oh, he says, you look like a young girl. Yeah, again. It was just, yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. And I want everybody else to get this, you know. I speak to everybody, but there's always excuses. Oh, I couldn't give up my meat. Oh, I couldn't give up dairy. I said, well, why not? You know, I don't say to you're obese, but I look at this person and they're enormous and they sort of got diabetes. Hey, what have you got to lose? Try it for a month. You know, see how it goes.
Yeah, well, and it's incredible because I'm thinking, you know, you basically live with IBS for, if I'm doing my math right, 55, 57
Yeah,
years or so. I mean,
well, from when I was 10 till I was
that's,
57.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you basically didn't know life without that.
Yeah, and it wasn't that it was ignored. But first doctor who came to see it with the first colic I had, because my memory is not great. I remember that first colic. And they said, oh, we've got a grumbling appendix. Well, Jason, I've still got my appendix. So it couldn't have been very grumbling, could it? And when I was living in Norfolk, they sent me to the Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, which is a very famous hospital. And they said, well, yes, you've got slow intestine, but, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, it must be, it's all psychological. That's what Adam. So, you know, it wasn't people didn't try to find out, but they never did because they never thought it might be my diet. And the slow intestine, a thing of the past. Yes, yes. every day my loose finds me. So yes, it's great.
And then,
Yeah, it's
I know you,
amazing.
you kind of alluded to it there, but just to be clear, so your husband had 85% blockage in that side. What is the percentage blockage now?
Neil, he hasn't got any blockages. It's completely 10 days, and it was complete. The heart flow was clear, was good, no blockages.
Wow.
No,
Um,
10 days he'd been on diet, no blockages,
that's amazing.
and what is it that he had his heart attack in September 2014? It's 3 years. The stats. I, as a nurse, know the stats about somebody who's had a heart attack. That normally within a year there's another one, and then another one, and he's been fine. Touch wood, yes, touch wood. Be sure. Yeah, he's been fine, and he's been signed off from the hospital, and
No meds?
no meds. Oh yeah, well when we went, I don't know if I told you, when we went to the GP a few months ago after he had his blood tests, and the GP said, "Well, I've got this letter from your cardiologist, and yes, he says that you said it's memory loss was caused by statin, but he would like you to have a low dose of statins and a blood thinner." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, what was his cholesterol?" I said, "Well, just let me check. I mean, you're going to give statins when you don't know somebody's cholesterol." Well, we measure cholesterol differently here. So it has to be, they say you have to be under 5, for it to be good, under 5. He was 3.8, which is low,
Wow.
And also my cholesterol, I was 6.8. And the last time I had it checked, which was a year ago, it's 4.4. And then another doctor who we went to see in the practice, and I told him that, he weighed me and found that my weight was still stable. I hadn't put on weight. And he said, I'm not going to do your cholesterol. When I told him our diet, "Oh, well, I'm not going to bother to measure your cholesterol." Sure, it's fine.
Wow.
So I don't know what mine is, because he said that I was fine because I'm eating whole food, plant-based, no added oil. So, but my husband, but for a doctor to say, well, take statins when it's 3.8. And I think, and she said, "Oh, well, I really ought to read his notes." I thought, well, yes, but
So I
towards
know
then,
I know one thing that is a common, as I know, a misconception about eating, a ton of fruits and vegetables is, oh, it's too expensive to be a vegetarian. It's whatever. But you've actually seen a decrease in your food bill.
yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, we reckon it's about 30% less, because you take away, because my husband never ate a lot of meat, neither did I. It gave us indigestion anyway. So, but we ate fish, and quite a lot of fish, occasionally meat, and dairy. And you take away all that. You take away the cheese, you take away the yogurt, you take away the fish, the eggs, all that stuff away. And you place it with things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, or pasta. Your bills are bound to go down. So I can't always find organic. I try and if organic's available, I get it. I quite a lot of organic broccoli, and I work out. And for instance, at the moment, the maize is or corn on the cob
Okay.
is available. And then I say I can buy it in its shirt, covered up, and we get that, and that's 29p. So I suppose what is it, about 20 cents each? We'll have one each, and I'll do my iPot, and I'll probably put some zucchini in there as well, and do that, and a big salad. And I worked out that the meal, at maximum, that meal is £2, which would be, I don't know, about $1.70, more or less, £2. And that's a meal, for both of us. So, and if I do a risotto, and I get really good quality risotto rice for that, and that works out, I suppose, and I suppose it'd work out £2 or £3 for £1.50 each. So that's really, for goodness sake, when you're full up and you've had a good meal, and no, it's I think about 30%. Fish is expensive, meat is expensive, and dairy. If you get good quality dairy, it's expensive. So you take all that away. But anyway, Jason, I tell you this: even if it costs more, I'd still do it because your health is without price, basically. And if you've got in America, you have to buy your medications, don't you? So, goodness me, for the Americans, you take off the medicines off your bill, and you'll find that you're paying less to eat like this.
Yeah, and just this is not something I normally ask, but it sounds like you've lived in some of the finest places in the world to eat. What's maybe a dish or two, and you're married to an Italian. What's maybe a dish or two that you guys used to love that you've been able to put your own twist on? That
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the risotto, I do my iPod, and I put a recipe on the Jill McKeever recipes, which is my very quick risotto, and in my iPod, my instant pot, and it's quick and it's absolutely delicious, and you can put what veggies you like in it. So that's one I put that. Even my husband says it's as good as the traditionally made risotto, and I was very good at making risotto, and it's as good as that. Another thing on a Sunday we have polenta. My husband's a Northern Italian. Now polenta is a traditional dish, right? It's normally done either with gorgonzola or with fried eggs or with a meat stew. So, for instance, Sunday I did polenta, and in the morning I put in the slow cooker, part of my instant pot. I did a lentil stew, and we had it with lentils, and it was delicious. And I do it with Mary McDougall's mushroom gravy. I slightly adapt that. And if you look at the Italian peasant food, which is my husband when he was a kid, and they were poor and and he was sent into the country with his grandmother. There'd be things like chickpeas. They go gazambo bees in American.
yeah,
We
garbanzo.
call them garbanzo, and we call them chickpeas, and with pasta. That's a typical dish. Lentils with rice is another typical dish. Pasta asciutta, which is pasta with tomato sauce. And that's another one, because you can find in the supermarket, I can find in the supermarket a jar of tomato sauce which is without oil. There might be a little bit of sugar in, might be a little bit of salt in, but for a quick meal, that's what I do. And I put some more herbs in, perhaps, and or some nutritional yeast, and that's a quick meal. So gnocchi, potato gnocchi, that's another one that is very easy. You can have it with tomato sauce. At lunchtime, we had a French dish. It's something I do, at least I try and do once a week because of the iron content. Because my husband, he used to suffer with anemia. That's another thing. On this diet, he doesn't suffer from anemia. And he had to have what they call ferritin infusions in the vein, because our iron stores were so low. 2 years, he's been fine. And but I do this French salad, which is again in my instant pot. He's my best friend, my instant pot. I do the potatoes, beetroot, which is that red beet, red onions, and I put them all in my instant pot. And I cook them, and then I peel them. I put some raw celery chopped up to give a bit of crunch in a salad, and a dressing with the vinegar and some mustard, and that's it. And I do that at least once a week because it is very good for the iron content, the beetroot. And that's French. And I do a mushroom soup based on a French recipe. So, and lots of salads. It's very, very easy to adapt. And if you go to the peasant cooking of Italian peasant cooking, that too is really easy. All you do is just take out the animal products and take out the dairy, which you can do, even though my mother used to say, oh, the Italians have cheese with it. But it never used to be, because Parmesan used to be extremely expensive. Well, it's still not cheap, but people couldn't afford it once upon a time. So yeah, we eat very well. And the thing is, my husband really enjoys food. Well, I enjoy it, but I enjoy food. I've always enjoyed food. I think that my husband would have walked out the door if I'd have produced a takeaway for dinner. I really do. He'd have gone, I'm off.
That's funny. So you're in your later 60s and you've lost,
I'm
66,
70
67
next.
pounds.
I'm 17. Yeah,
And
70
then
next year.
and then in the mix of all this, you decide you're going to take up running as well.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that and how that kind of developed?
Yeah, I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy, but and everybody thought I was crazy to take up running. They said, "What about your joints? Your knees and your ankles and your feet and so on." And but in Born to Run, they say that this is a load of rubbish. I was going to use another word then, and I thought, oh, no, I mustn't. No, it's not true. It's a myth. It's one of these urban myths that running affects your joints. Personally, I would say to anybody, don't start running when you're overweight. I'd already lost my weight when I started running, but I had, because as I got thinner, I always did Pilates for my back, but as I got thinner, then I started with video workouts, to build up my muscles, They're still quite small. My mother would have called them sparrow's kneecaps, but they're there. And also because to be mobile, because I don't know in America, but here when they show old people, they show them going around with their Zimmer frames, and they could hardly walk. And I thought, I don't want to end up like that. So as I got better, got thinner, and then I read this book, Born to Run. Another one that it came up on. No, I think it came up on the Audible. It was an Audible audio book for $1.99. And I thought, oh, this sounds interesting because everybody in my family runs. I'd never run, and it's an amazing book. I loved it. In fact, I bought one for my grandson, which he enjoyed too. And I thought, wow, I wonder if I could start. And then I came across this app. This webpage and the National Health Service, which is our health service thing. And there was this podcast and Couch to 5K. I thought, I wonder if I dare, And then, but I'd been inspired by this idea that you get old because you stop running, And so I started, and that was last September, and gradually started running. And then, as I said, my daughter-in-law, she said she was signing up for the 10K here in Brighton. I said, oh, I don't know if I can manage. She said, well, why don't you try? She said, you can always walk most of it. You don't have to run it all, And I did run it slowly, but I did run it all. So, yeah, and I'm still running. I've had a couple of bad falls outside because our pavements are in such a shocking state. And the last fall, I had this bruise that started from here, sort of right down my neck onto my chest, and my husband sort of looked at me. She said, "Well, do you think you ought to carry on running?" I said, "But I really love running, and I loved running outside. I have to say, even with our weather, even with the wind, even with the rain. We did have some nice days, in the summer, but and then there came special offer for our local gym. So I thought to my daughter-in-law, said, "Oh, they've got special offer." She's always encouraging me, And so now I go to the gym 3 times and I run on the treadmill, which is probably I did manage to fall the first day. I caught
Oh
my
no.
foot. I caught my foot on the side, which was stable. And suddenly our daughter-in-law who's there with me, she said, 1 minute I was there, the next minute I wasn't. You step. I haven't fallen since I realised what I did wrong. But I do. I go there and I do my 5 minutes walk, my 30-odd minutes run, a 5 minutes walk, and then I go and swim, and I'm up to 16 lengths now, so it's Olympic length swimming pool. So I do that, and I don't know, the 10K again is in April. Who knows? I might try again, because I've got a charity I'd like to run for, because here there's a terrible problem of homelessness in Brighton. We have a lot of rough sleepers, and this charity, it helps young people get back on their feet again. They help, and with young people who are homeless. They can go there, they can wash their clothes, they can get advice about what to do, and so on and so forth. And I'm very keen on helping young people, and so I would like to run for them again, but we'll see. I don't know, because I'm 70 next year, so but I might do it. Yeah, but I'm running, so I'm still running, but what I say and there's nothing wrong with my joints. When I was checked over by a physio, she sort of did this with my knees, and she said, I can't feel any, so there's no crackling or crackling. She said, your knees are in perfect condition. So, yes, nothing wrong with my knees.
Wow.
And I think that it's got better since I've lost the weight, since with the exercise, with the running. I don't get pains in my hips, my back's good, and yeah, it's amazing, and I love it. Also, another thing I found with the running is it helped my mental state, because I do suffer a bit from depression. I worry about my husband and the kids, and now with Brexit for us, with my family, it's a disaster, because I've got dual nationality, so is my son, but my husband is Italian, so we've no idea what's going to happen. It's very worrying, but I haven't turned to food, and I find that the running really helps. It seems to lift my spirits. So, I think the running's great. And everybody keeps on saying to me, she says, well, you're turning back the clock. And I thought, well, I look in the mirror and I thought, well, I don't know about that. But physically, yes, I've turned back the clock. Because in comparison with my friends I've got left, because most of my friends have died in their 50s and 60s, because we're the fast food, I suppose, generation, the processed food generation. And one has had rheumatoid arthritis for 30 odd years. Another one has Parkinson's for the past 20 or 30 years and is now getting bad. And another friend, a dear friend of mine who's my age, ended up in a care home because she can't look after herself mentally. So I think I'm in pretty good nick,
Yeah.
compared to everybody else. And I'm convinced that the diet, it just, and it's helped. And I say, if it can reverse my husband's heart disease and reverse all the things that I was going forward to, I just want to share. I want people to know that it's possible. There's nothing special about me. I'm an ordinary, I might be a bit crazy, but on the whole, I'm an ordinary sort of person. I've been a housewife. Yes, it's true. I did go back to university and got my degree when I was 51, but I did Italian studies. I thought, I'm not going to have lived in Italy for 25 years without getting something out of it, But I think I do have the mentality that it doesn't matter how old, you can always learn. There's always something to learn. It's just that you don't get old and you can't learn anymore. There's always stuff to learn and always stuff. But I want people to know it's possible. And I want younger people to say, look, do it. Do it before you get old like me. Do it before you get loose skin. Although, I was only touched on obese, but my skin, it's what it is, But do it while you're young and you can get all the benefits from being healthy. Because I say to people when they say, oh, don't you miss cheese? Don't you? And I used to be a cheese addict. I love my cheese. And I said, no, because nothing tastes as good as feeling healthy. Nothing. Your health is the biggest richness that you can have. If you're healthy, you can do stuff. If you've got problems, if you have money problems, if you're healthy, you can fight and get out of it. If you're not well, what reserves have you got to get out of your difficulties? You don't have it. You need your health. You need your energy. And let's face it, that chap in Spudfit in Australia, he lived on potatoes for a year. Goodness me, there's nothing cheaper than potatoes. And he got fit. So I think that financially, if you're poor, if you're a poor person, and I've been poor, that this diet is brilliant because you can eat well, you don't get hungry, you eat to satisfaction, and you get fit and healthy. And that means that you can get out of the hole that you're in. And so that's what I'd say to everybody, you know. But I know what it, I mean, when my parents split up, you know, we had very, very little money. And, you know, I know what it's like. I know for a time we're homeless because my mother took me and we went to visit some relatives, distant relatives, and my father changed the locks, so we had no more home. You know, I know I've been there. I know what it's like. But if you've got your health, you can fight against that. But if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing. And you can have all that, you can have millions in the bank. If you haven't got your health, you've got nothing, in my opinion. And that comes from, as I said, 57 years of suffering from colics, you know, terribly debilitating colics, you know, and never feeling fit or well, you know, fighting this awful battle with my weight. And people don't understand because they think it's your fault. It's not your fault. It's
Yeah.
not that I didn't try.
And, you know, I know basically everything you just said to me may answer this question, but is there anything looking back at, you know, the last 3 years of your life and then also the last, you know, 7 years of your life, is there anything about this, the things that have changed now that has surprised you, that you plain never thought you would be sitting, you know, with the realization of something that you have now?
I never thought I was going to be slim without trying. I never thought it. For me, it's the biggest surprise of my life when we started eating like this and the weight just started to melt away, literally. You know, I got on scales once a week and there'd be another kilo gone and then another and perhaps sometimes two. And it just, my shape changed. You know, this is it. You know, everything changed. And my best friend who'd always been skinny, you know, she said, "Oh, you'll never lose your tummy. All the women your our age got tummies." I said, "Well, except you." You know, my tummy has gone. I've got a flat stomach, but it's fact. I thought I was going to be fat the rest of my life and probably die from it as well. It's the biggest, amazing, incredible thing was the weight going. And then the next surprise was I suddenly realised I wasn't getting colics anymore and I had no more migraines. That was the surprise, you know, because I didn't realise at first. I thought, oh, you know, oh, where's my, I haven't taken my migraine medicine lately, you know, but it's the weight. And I think that people have suffered, I mean, you've been overweight yourself, but people like me who battled with their weight because I know that some people just give up and they sit in front of the telly and they just say, I can't cope with it anymore. For various reasons, they just eat, you know, and I know what it's like in America today with all the fast food, which is like it is now. It wasn't like that when I was young. We didn't have fast food. We didn't have takeaways. And for goodness sake, we couldn't afford to eat out. And I think the first time I went to a restaurant was with my husband. And I think that it's this. It's just you think that you're never going to be able to win the battle, and you're always going to have to fight the battle. Because I hated being fat. I hated it. I really did. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like to look at myself in the mirror. You know, I hated it. I really did. And I think if a majority of people, if they're honest, that they hate it too, because you're uncomfortable and you don't look good. You put on clothes. And I mean, let's face it, I mean, in the 60s, we had Twiggy in this country. It was just like, you know, thinner than that, you know, you couldn't be. So clothes were never right. And I think I was about 140, 150 pounds. I hadn't got to where I did get to, you know, and which is more or less 200. And, but I was overweight. And, yeah, I mean, even when I got married, I was, let's have a look, let's do some sums here. I must have been about 150. I was what we called 11 stone 11, I think it's about 150, 160 pounds. You know, I wasn't slim. And when you have this, and you get to that time, I'm so tired of fighting. So tired of fighting. I'm so tired of having to resist to hear that voice in the kitchen, and I can't eat this and I can't eat that. But you start this food, and as I said, I did it for my husband, so it was even a bigger surprise. It wasn't for me. And to see the weight going like that without effort, without hungry, without trying, for God's sake, literally. And that's my biggest surprise. And this is why I say to everybody, try it. You stay compliant, and you eat to hunger. You eat to. I find that my husband always said, "Oh, well, you don't snack." So I've practically stopped snacking. When I come back from the gym, I'll have a banana, and I might have an apple as well if I'm really hungry, before dinner. And we do try to have the evening meal at 6 o'clock in the evening, so that we, but then we get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm awake. Goodness sake, I've always been the person who went to bed late and woke up late. Now I'm 5 o'clock and I'm there, right, going to do my exercises. It's amazing. But that's the biggest surprise. I didn't expect it. I didn't do it for me. I didn't do it. I was convinced I'd get fatter.
And if you could have a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's hearing your story, who's things are resonating with them, what would you give someone advice-wise on day one?
I'd say find your why. Why are you doing it? Because if you don't have, because that why will give you the motivation. If you look in the mirror and you hate what you see, that's your why. If you can't get out of the chair comfortably, if you can't walk because your legs rub together, because it's uncomfortable, that's your why. So it might be your mobility, it might be your health, it might be what you see in the mirror, but you have to have your why. And I did it because my why was getting my husband better. And I did it, and I did it for him. And that was literally because I was losing him. I was losing him mentally. After all, you are what your brain is. And he was just devastated himself. So that was my what. We're going to be compliant for 30 days. And we just carried on because it was working. And I had started to lose weight as well, but that was the biggest surprise. But once, of course, I realized how well I was getting, how fit I was being. And also I realized the devastation that livestock farming does to our planet, and the suffering we put these poor animals through that I never knew about. That is now my why. That's my why now, is to stay healthy, save the planet for my grandchildren, and save the suffering from these poor animals. My why's changed, because my why before was my husband. My husband's more or less sorted, So but you have to, if you're doing it on your first day, and don't think, don't sort of keep on jumping on the scales. Just for 30 days, just eat what if you choose John McDougall, if you choose Chef AJ, or if you choose Esselstyn because you've got heart problems, or Dr. Barnard for diabetes, because I've read them all, because I read, and I watch. It's all, if you haven't got any money, it's all free on the internet. They're wonderful people. They give lectures. The McDougall program is free on his website. There's no excuse financially. You don't have to go to an expensive health club or something. You don't have to exercise. And in fact, if you are very obese, I'd say don't exercise. Just start gently walking, and get walking, get your body moving. But for heaven's sake, don't think you're going to run a 10K, or 5K. When I see people are very overweight running, I think, oh my God, I hope they don't have a heart attack, Yeah, you do. That's the kind of thing you gradually, as you lose the weight, as you get better, then you'll want to exercise more because you want to move your body. But it's the food. You know, it really is the food, because I'm probably one of the few people who put on weight when they started running, because I started eating bread. I'd come home and I had what we Italian called merenda. So I'd be very hungry. I'd have 2 slices of toast with perhaps some what we call jam, no sugar jam, but you call jelly, I think. It's a different language, American, you know, can't get away from it. And and then my husband, we found some very nice wine. My husband doesn't drink, but he said, look, like a glass of wine with your meal. So I put on 7 pounds over a period of 6 months. And I started to feel uncomfortable again. I thought, oh no, out the bread, out the alcohol, nothing, back, and I've lost it all and a bit more. So, but you just have to, if you're on your first day, be compliant, be patient, and it's the food. It's not exercise. And when people say to exercise, when the doctors tell you, oh, well, it's just a question of moving more. No, that is rubbish. And I could use a lot stronger word for it. It's rubbish, because fat people are not lazy. I know I wasn't lazy when I was fat. I know a lot of people who are fat, and they work hard, they work long hours, with jobs, they have families, they work really hard. People it's the food, and they haven't been told that the right food will get rid of the weight, and they need to eat the correct food. Like McDougall says, it's the food, and also the fat you eat is the fat you wear.
Yeah, and then
really.
And then, if you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself, what would that look like? What would you say to yourself?
I don't know. I say, well, you're going to have to wait 50 years to find the solution. I think I would be so depressed. I couldn't say, I really, if I could go back, and if I could give the wisdom I've learned now to that person 50 years ago, 20-year-old, or after I'd had my kids when I was 33 and I'd started losing weight. And I said, in America, there's this Dr. McDougall. He's about your age, and he's found out this thing. I would have. But you see, we didn't have the internet, did we?
Yeah, yeah, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I would, and I would have done it if somebody had said to me then, look, if you follow this, if you get rid of the animal products, you're causing immense suffering, you're causing damage to the planet, and you will lose weight, you'll be fit and healthy. I've changed, like I did when I was 67, because I know what it's like. You don't want, when you're coming into your late 30s, you still want to be attractive, you want to be healthy, you want to be fit. Anyway, you do when you're 67, you just try and ignore the wrinkles, But, you want to be the best you can be,
Sure. And then what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I actually haven't got a Facebook or a web page or anything, because I don't do this. I'm not a counsellor. I don't advise people or anything. I'm just one of the followers, so to speak. I'm on Jill McVeever's web page. I think it's McKeever. Is it McKeever? Yeah, McKeever. Her web page, her 2 web pages, and you can find me there, and you can find my story there as well. And if somebody, I am on Facebook under Jennifer Peli, and if people wanted to ask advice, I suppose I could befriend them, But on the whole, you have to be careful. You don't know who's going to come after you. But as I said, if they go on, and also Jill McKeever on that web page there's so many people who are going through this journey, and who give advice or ask advice, and it's so supportive. It really is. There's lots of people, if you're having trouble or you're having difficulty, there's loads of people. I mean, I got 333 likes on my photo, my story, because they're there cheering you along, and so you'll find me there, But as I said, I'm not a counsellor. I just followed it, and I just wanted to share my story to tell everybody else, look, you can do it. Don't wait for it to be too late.
Well, Jennifer, thanks for the time. Congratulations on everything. Congrats on
Thank you.
having, as you say, a flat stomach and also having your husband
Oh yes,
around.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah. It's brilliant. And anyway, as I said, it's just your health is everything. If you haven't got that, you've got nothing. And I see it with people, who officially I've seen it when I was nursing. So yeah, do it. It's the food, folks. It's the food, and a fat you eat is a fat you wear. Come on.
well, speaking of food, I'm gonna go grab lunch. And thanks again
Yeah.
for the
Oh
time
yes.
and for being open and sharing your story. And
Yeah.
I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah. Buon
And
appetito.
bon appetit and good luck at the 5K in April.
Yeah. Oh, it would be a
10K,
10K if I
10K.
do it. Yes, a 10K. Right. Bye,
All right, thanks.
Jason. Lovely speaking to you. Bye.